Leave her. It's over. The words, cold and final, dropped like stones. Her husband's voice never shook. It didn't need to. Kemi stood motionless, her hand resting lightly on her swollen belly. The world had tilted in one sentence. She had given birth just hours ago, the pain still fresh, yet now her world felt like it was crumbling around her. The sterile smell of the hospital, the sound of beeping machines, and the rhythmic pulse of the heart monitor. None of it mattered. The words hung in the air, thick with betrayal. "Don't try to stop me, Kemi," her husband Tunde said, his eyes hard and unblinking. He did not look at her as he spoke, did not even glance at their newborn son, lying quietly in his cot. Tunde was already walking toward the door, his movements stiff, determined. "You're not the woman I married." Her chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "I'm done. I can't do this anymore." Kemi's heart thundered as she tried to steady her breath. "Tunde, please. We've been through this together. No," he interrupted. "You've changed. You're not the same. You wanted this baby. You've dragged me into this, and I can't bear it anymore. I thought we'd get through this, but I can't." He paused, his gaze flicking toward the door. "Goodbye." Before she could speak again, he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click. The faint echo of his footsteps echoed in the sterile hall. Kemi's breath caught in her throat. She glanced at the window, at the light filtering through the blinds, and then at the small face of the baby she had just brought into the world. He was sleeping soundly, blissfully unaware of the chaos that had just unfolded. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She knew there was no point. No one would see them. No one would care. She had been abandoned in the one place where she should have felt safest. Alone. And now, the silence of the hospital room was deafening. Kemi spent the next few weeks in a haze. The physical pain from the birth subsided, but the emotional weight of her husband's departure lingered like a heavy cloud. She stayed in the hospital for the full recovery period, her time marked by routine visits from nurses and the occasional phone call from family members who spoke to her with polite concern but failed to truly see her. Tunde's absence was suffocating. He didn't call, he didn't come to visit. It was as if he had erased her from his life completely. He didn't even ask about their son. And so, she endured. The nurses were kind, but often busy. They treated her with the same care they gave to all the other patients, but Kemi knew they had no idea what it felt like to be abandoned in the very place you were supposed to feel the safest. To be alone with only the quiet hum of machines and the soft, intermittent crying of newborns around her. But it was when she left the hospital and returned to the empty apartment that the weight really hit her. The first night, she sat by the window in silence. The crib was set up across the room. Isaiah, the baby she had named after her father, was asleep, but she couldn't sleep. Every noise outside made her jump. Every shadow in the corner of her eye caused her heart to race. Where would she go from here? She couldn't go back to her parents' house. She had already left that life behind when she married Tunde. She had built a life with him. Now it was gone. The reality of raising a child alone hit her like a physical blow. But there was no time to wallow in it. She had to be strong. There were nights when she could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her, but she simply endured. She couldn't afford to do anything else. Isaiah grew quickly. His little hands grasped her finger tightly, and his laughter was a balm for Kemi's weary soul. She found a small part-time job as a cleaner in a nearby cafe, just enough to pay for essentials. She learned how to make do with less, how to ration her energy and her time. She watched as other parents took their children to parks and out for ice cream, and she wondered if she would ever find the strength to belong to that world again. But for now, she had to focus on survival, on making sure Isaiah was fed, clothed, and loved. Everything else could wait. There were days when the exhaustion hit harder than others. The weight of the struggle began to show on her face, dark circles under her eyes, the slow weariness in her movements. But when she looked into Isaiah's face, when she saw his small, trusting smile, she found something inside herself that she didn't even know was there. Strength. She was doing this on her own, and she was doing it for him. And through it all, she did not ask for help. She did not complain. Her pride, her sense of dignity, did not allow it. She had been abandoned, yes, but she would not let herself be defeated. The weeks turned into months, and life for Kemi became a steady cycle. The routine was both her anchor and her prison. The part-time job at the cafe kept her busy. The long hours allowed little time for reflection, but she still had moments. Those quiet moments, when the world would slow down just enough for her to remember how alone she was. It wasn't that she didn't have people around her. Her family called occasionally, but their concern always felt distant, as if they couldn't understand the depth of her loneliness. Even friends, those who had once celebrated her marriage, now seemed unsure how to treat her. Sympathy was a kindness, but it felt hollow. They had their own lives, their own struggles. Tunda had never reached out, not once, and yet, every day, Kemi's thoughts circled back to him, like an unbroken loop. Why had he done this? Why had he abandoned her in the hospital without warning or care? She thought about those words he had said before walking out that day. "You're not the woman I married." What did that even mean? Had she become so different that she was unrecognizable? Was it because she had chosen to have a child? Or was there something more? The questions nagged at her, and they were heavy in her chest, almost suffocating. But as the days passed, she grew more determined. She refused to fall into despair. She focused on Isaiah, on being the best mother she could be. She could feel herself changing, slowly, almost imperceptibly. Strength was no longer just about surviving. It was about standing firm in the face of everything that had tried to break her. One evening, as she was leaving her shift at the cafe, Kemi's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "I need to talk to you. It's about Tunda." Kemi froze. Her mind raced. She stared at the screen, unsure whether to respond. She had no idea who this could be. She had not spoken to anyone connected to Tunda in months. Curiosity got the better of her. She replied, "Who is this?" The message came in almost immediately. "I have information you need to know. It's about his other life, the one he never told you about." Kemi's heart beat faster. Her hands trembled as she typed her response. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" The reply was simple. Meet me at the old park tomorrow. I'll explain everything." Kemi didn't know what to expect. She considered not going, considered ignoring the message and moving on with her life, but something inside her knew she couldn't ignore it. There was something more to the story. Something about Tunda that she didn't know. Something that might explain his sudden abandonment. The next day, she arrived at the park, unsure of what she was walking into. The park had always been a peaceful place for her and Tunda in the past. Their walks had once been a shared space, filled with plans and dreams for the future. Now, it felt like a hollow shell of what it had once been. She waited after. What felt like hours, a car pulled into the lot, and a man stepped out. He was older, dressed in business attire. His eyes scanned the park, and when he saw her, he approached. "You're Kemi, right?" the man asked. "I'm Mike. I used to work with Tunde." Kemi nodded, but her mind was racing. Who was this man, and what did he know about her husband? "What do you know about Tunde?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mike looked around cautiously before speaking. "Tunda's been hiding something from you. Something that goes deeper than you realize. I didn't want to get involved, but I know you deserve the truth." Kemi's heart sank. She wasn't sure she was ready for whatever he was about to say, but she needed to hear it. She needed to understand why everything had fallen apart so suddenly. Mike took a deep breath and continued. "Tunde has been involved with someone else for the past year. He's been supporting her financially, emotionally. It's been going on behind your back the whole time, and I'm afraid it's more than just a fling. He's been planning to leave you for her." Kemi felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under her. She stared at Mike, disbelief written all over her face. "Are you telling me that he left me for someone else?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Not just someone else," Mike said. "She's been pressuring him to cut ties with you completely. They wanted to make sure you didn't get in the way. That's why he left. He wanted to be free of the responsibility." Kemi's chest tightened. She had been abandoned, not because of who she was, but because of what Tunda had wanted to avoid: responsibility. Her mind raced. She had always known something wasn't right. She had sensed the distance between them growing, but she never imagined this. Never imagined that her whole life had been a lie. Mike saw the anger building in her eyes, and he held up his hands. "I'm sorry. I wish I could have told you sooner, but you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to have closure." Kemi nodded slowly, her mind spinning. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and sadness. As she walked back to her apartment that night, her steps felt heavy, but her resolve was stronger than ever. She had been abandoned, but now she knew why. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't because she wasn't good enough, or because she had done something wrong. It was because Tunda had chosen to walk away from the responsibility he had created. And now, it was time for her to move forward. If this story resonates with you, take a moment to like and subscribe for more powerful, true-to-life stories of betrayal, strength, and survival. Kemi stood at the edge of the hospital's parking lot, the cool night air brushing against her skin. The city lights blinked softly in the distance, but her thoughts were far away, locked in the moment that had changed her life forever. She had learned the truth. The man who had once sworn to love her had abandoned her. not because of any fault of her own, but because he was too weak to carry the burden of responsibility. It wasn't just betrayal that hurt the most. It was the realization that Tunda had never seen her for who she truly was. He had only seen what he could manipulate. The pain, the heartbreak, was nothing compared to the silence he had forced upon her. But now, she had a choice. She could either live in this moment, wallowing in the betrayal, or she could stand up for herself and for her son and reclaim what had been stolen from her. The next morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, Kemi found herself walking into the law office of a firm she had never thought she would need. She had decided for the first time in her life that she would fight, not for revenge, but for her own future. She would ensure that Tunda could never erase her from her own story. Inside the office, Kemi met with her lawyer, an older woman with sharp eyes and a quiet confidence that made Kemi feel like she was not alone in this fight. "I've gathered the necessary documents," the lawyer said, placing a thick file on the desk. "We can file for a formal divorce and request full custody of your son. It's time we make sure Tunde is held accountable for his actions." Kemi's eyes scanned the papers in front of her, but a part of her still felt disconnected from the reality of it all. She had spent so much time surviving, pushing through the pain, that she hadn't allowed herself to imagine what life could be like without him. But this wasn't just about the divorce. It was about showing Isaiah that the world could be kinder, that strength came from silence and endurance, not from giving up or playing games. She could do this for herself and for him. She signed the papers, her hands steady, her resolve firm. This was the first step toward the life she deserved. Weeks passed, and the legal battle became more intense. Tunde's lawyer filed multiple motions as to delay the proceedings, trying to drag the process out. But Kemi was unrelenting. Every court date was a small victory, and with each step, she felt herself grow stronger. She wasn't just fighting for her son's future, she was fighting for her own. One morning, as Kemi sat in the waiting room of the courthouse, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Tunda. "I know things have been difficult. I've been thinking about everything. I want to meet and talk." Kemi stared at the screen. There was no anger in her heart anymore, no resentment. Just an understanding that whatever Tunda wanted to say would never change the truth. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she sat back in her chair and thought about what this moment meant for her. She had endured his betrayal in silence, but now she was speaking with her actions. Every move she made was another step toward reclaiming the life she deserved. In the courtroom, the final judgment was delivered. The judge ruled in Kemi's favor, full custody of Isaiah, and a division of assets that ensured she could maintain a stable life. The judge's words were clear, and for the first time in a long while, Kemi felt like the world was on her side. Tunda's lawyer attempted to make one final appeal, but it was clear he had lost. Tunda had abandoned his responsibility, and now the consequences were inescapable. As the gavel struck, Kemi stood tall. Her heart was steady, her mind clear. She wasn't looking for revenge, but she knew one thing: she had won. Not because of the court's decision, but because she had taken control of her own life. Kemi and Isaiah, standing in front of their new apartment. The door is wide open, inviting them into their new life. Isaiah, now a few years older, smiles up at her. "Mom, I can't wait to get started," he says, his voice filled with excitement. Kemi smiles, her heart full. She takes his hand, and together they step inside. She had been abandoned, but in the end, she had never been truly alone. In a world that tried to break her, Kemi had found her strength. Not through loud defiance, but through quiet endurance. The truth had arrived, not in a moment of chaos, but in a slow, steady shift. And in the end, the truth had been enough to carry her through. If this story moved you, like and subscribe for more hidden truth stories. Stories about strength, resilience, and the quiet power of those who never give up.